Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. What does it mean when a team starts 3-0 the way the Vikings have started 3-0? Tell ya.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with the Wide Left Substack. You don't need to wait. It means they're good. The Vikings are good.
They're good. They're good. Hey, Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. 122 decibels yesterday at US Bank, almost as much as Arif's mic levels.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Come one, come all, come into our live Minnesota Football Party, and let's celebrate the best team in the National Football League. I'm Sam Ekstrom. You met Luke Inman. You met Arif Hassan. What a day. What a start for the Minnesota Vikings. They're 3-0. They've beaten two of the NFL's top contenders handily. We'll be breaking down the Week 3 decimation of the Houston Texans, ranking the revenge games. I found 9 revenge angles in yesterday's game. We will dissect those and, of course, sprinkle in plenty of color about the game in the process. What is the Vikings' weakness, if any, through 3 games? We are riding high on the Minnesota Football Party today. 2017 vibes? Maybe. For the Vikings. We'll talk about that comparison, get into our nerdy stats. I've got an insane one that puts into context what a 3-0 start of this caliber means. And of course, Week 3 bet results. Actually not a bad week for most of us. That's all coming up on the Minnesota Football Party, which is brought to you today by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, Arif Hassan, another week, another Sam Darnold performance. That was quite good. Another week where Russell Wilson didn't play. We won't mention that for the sake of my brand, but
Just
the Minnesota Vikings are rolling 34-7, the final score. Obviously, the Vikings won the game. Who won the game within the game? There were 9 revenge angles that I counted yesterday. If you stretch it really thin and you go with Shaq Griffin being a revenge angle, David Quessenberry being a revenge angle, you had 9 players that were playing their former team. I think we know who the winner was of the revenge game, but give it to us. Who was your revenge winner, and maybe your top 3 while you're at it, or just rank them 1 through 9? What do you got?
Yeah, I think that obviously Jonathan Grenard's at the top. Don't need to really dissect that too much. Yeah, 3 sacks. Actually, also, in addition to that, a couple of pressures. Great in the run game. Just good. So there's that. After that, I'm looking at your list of potential revenge angles. I think that you've got Diggs ranked a little too low. Grugier Hill is ranked appropriately. You've got him second. That's fine. He got the going started on defense with that pick at the top, and he was great against the run. Phenomenal against the run. So really good game from him. And then I think Diggs is third. Hunter 4th, and then you had Shaq Griffin 3rd. I have him like 6th behind Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman had a good game. I don't know why you ranked him so low.
Yeah, I got Cashman 4th. Where do you have Cashman, Sam?
Let me give them to you 1 through 9.
Yeah, let's just hear it.
Jonathan Grenard first, obviously, 3 sacks, 5 pressures. Grugier Hill, interception, and arguably could have been a forced fumble in just 21 snaps in the game. Bang for his buck. Shaq Griffin, this is why I had him 3rd. Not only was he just solid, but when targeted against Nico Collins 1 for 4 making the catch with a pass defense. Really good performance by Shaq. Then I've got Diggs. 10 catches, 94 yards. Just a good day, though not like a high impact day. I could have sworn watching the game Danielle Hunter had a sack. Apparently he didn't. He just almost injured Sam Darnold, I guess. I had him 5th. Quessenberry Quessenberry comes in and plays both tackle spots.
2 snaps. Great revenge.
PFF had him on 9. PFF had him with 9. Let's give him credit. 9 snaps. Came in for O'Neal. And then something happened to Darrisaw. Still haven't seen what. I don't know where he went. But he was in for 6 snaps for Darrisaw. Then Cashman 7. Akers 8 with his TD and not much else. Had a sweet spin move. And Chris Boyd comes up in 9th with 17 special team snaps.
I would rank Akers below Boyd. I think that if you are worse than a replacement level player at your position, then you are below a player that didn't play. So Cam Akers, worst revenge game. Chris Boyd, better revenge game. Quessenberry, then Shaq, who I know that he only, but I mean, like, so did Stefon Gilmore. So the secondary was fine. I don't want to like knock them too much because Nico Collins didn't get very much going. But I will say, I think that was like primarily a product of the play of up front and not as much the product of the actual cornerback group. And it's not like he was shadowing, Nico Collins. Nico Collins didn't get anything going against Byron Murphy, against Stefon Gilmore, against Blake Cashman. He was lined up at least once there. And against Shaq Griffin. I mean, just solid is not enough to overcome. I think Blake Cashman's a really good game.
So knowing that, Spinman, what were your?
Yeah, I got Grenard, Grugier Hill, Cashman 3, Diggs 4. Diggs is like very productive in the box score, some garbage time stuff in there, but still led the team in receptions and yards. Shaq, okay, I got him 5, Hunter 6, Quessenberry 7. I got Akers over Boyd at the end. I know we could spend a whole 30 minutes on that 8 versus 9 battle, but yeah, it might just be an Akers thing. I just, that one play with all those spin moves, man. I mean, don't discount that. I honestly didn't hone in on Boyd that much on those special teams plays. I have no idea what kind of game he had, I guess, but Akers, at least he got in the end zone.
One assumes that on plays where he doesn't incur penalties, he's really
right. Already a huge win for Chris Boyd. Yeah.
Apparently, Irv Smith is on their practice squad. I'm seeing from Kale Chips.
Yeah.
Didn't even realize that. Tyler Fornes says cramps for Darrisaw. Thank you. I actually did hear that from someone else. I didn't. Having a second source now confirms it for me. Cramps for Darrisaw. Yeah, I thought yesterday's game was just a blast. I mean, I got serious 2017 vibes, and we'll get into that comparison maybe a little more. But the early takeaway, the third down dominance, harassing the opposing quarterback into a place where CJ Stroud was miserable. The noise, the running game, the journeyman quarterback making plays with his legs. Very 2017-y. To me yesterday.
Extremely.
Very
it's 2017 without like the first 3 games of the season.
I was going to say,
screwing it up.
Forget 2017, they started 2-2, man. They lost to Pittsburgh on the road in week 2. They lost that tough game to Detroit. Week 4 was that. I know that was a Thielen fumble at the end.
They didn't turn it around until like the Buccaneers game. And then even then, I think there was 1 or 2 games where you were like, I don't know. And then it just kind of goes off.
But Bucks game, so Bucks, that was a Bucks game, a very good comp for yesterday. That's kind of how it felt with the dominance level. Then they lost to Detroit. All seemed lost. Dalvin Cook hurt.
14-7. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, we knew
Thielen
it. The Bucks
fumble.
game was an outlier. And then...
Amir Abdullah with the game-winning Detroit Lion touchdown, by the way.
Ooh, good pull.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they kind of limped their way through some ugly wins. The Bears win where Bradford had to leave again. They beat the Browns and the Ravens kind of ugly in there. And then after the bye, they came out and they just smoked Washington. They smoked the Rams. They beat Atlanta on the road. That team really had to ramp up to its peak. But this defensively, at least, feels like the defensive peak and the offensive peak are almost like scarily aligning really well right now for the Vikings. It's working right now, man. It's complementary. The defense sets the tone. The offense takes advantage of short fields. The offense is great on third down. Like the formula, how is the formula working this well for this team when, especially like it felt like it took a while when O'Connell got here. Cousins had to learn the system, and Cousins kept saying, I got to learn the system. It takes a while. It feels like they understand it like all these new guys defensively, they come in. Donatell kept saying, well, these defensive players have to learn the system. Seems like the new players understand the system with Brian Flores. It's all working so quickly against good teams. It's just remarkable.
Yeah,
it's
and,
nice
and,
having
the
good
same
coaches.
1-2 punch on the ground, too. Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray, right? The L train back there, ground and pound. It felt like more old school football under Mike Zimmer in 2017, didn't it? Like, we just want to play, great elite defense, try to turn the ball over. Remember that third down defense was like one of the best all time in the NFL, but run the ball methodically, keep our defense fresh, don't turn the ball over. This feels like a little bit more up-to-date version of that 2017. I mean, they can sling it around. Yes, they can run the ball. In fact, I was looking at just some splits from this year, these first 3 games, small sample, I know, but these first 3 games versus last year's numbers, they're averaging 68 more yards per game on the ground. So just the running game alone, I've just been blown away with. But yeah, 2017 felt like a little bit more old school, which was obviously, that was Mike Zimmer's kind of MO to begin with anyway. So that makes sense. KOC, that's not really his MO so much.
David McClendon posing the $1 million question. Is Sam a better QB than Kirk? Let's just vacuum this for a minute. Let's just ignore priors. Yeah, he's been better through 3 games. No question.
If we're talking about 2024, he's been better than Kirk in 2024 easily. Yeah. If we were to compare Kirk's peak, which was at 20, was it last year before he got hurt?
I would argue.
Maybe?
I would argue that. Yeah, 22 again. People forget first 3 quarters. Vikings offense pretty rough, pretty bad.
Yeah,
Fourth quarter historically good.
Well, opening drive and then the
opening
next
drive.
And then bread on the sandwich.
Third quarter.
Great.
Yeah, that whole third quarter, you might as well just kneel it 3 times.
If we're talking about the peak Kirk Cousins, and not the peak Kirk Cousins experience, which I think actually was 22, but peak Kirk Cousins, it would have been last year before he got hurt. And no, Sam's not as good as that. That's fine. I'm comfortable with that. Sam is doing really well. And it is fairly reminiscent of, we're going to keep going back to 2017, Case Keenum, because of how many chances he takes, right? How often he moves around in the pocket, how long he holds onto the ball and invites pressure, how much of a playmaker he wants to be. All of that together, without it necessarily being a deep ball offense. Sometimes he'll scramble and find intermediate passes, but it's nice. And I would say that a lot of the depth that the Vikings have, especially on offense, seems to be a lot more present than in 2017, right? Like Jalen Naylor is wide receiver 3, right? And he's playing like a wide receiver 2, maybe better. I don't know. He's playing.
I don't know about that. But I think he's opportunistic. I think he's good in the red zone.
Think he's playing like a wide receiver 2?
I don't think I'd like a wide receiver 2 to have more than 1, 2, or 3 catches. I don't think Naylor has been a frequently available target.
He did have some catches taken away too. I think he's playing outstandingly, if I'm being honest.
Nitpick. He's been good.
And when you get Jordan Addison back, I mean, having a player like Naylor with that level of quality playing at that level as your third wide receiver, then TJ Hawkinson back and having a tight end 1, that is a remarkably deep team, right? Like maybe they shouldn't rely as much on Oliver and Munt in the passing game as they do, but which is not a ton, by the way. There's not like a ton of targets heading their way, but some notable ones, right?
No, every week it's like, okay, over under 2.5 catches for Johnny Munt, and boy, am I tempted. And over under 1.5 for Josh Oliver. Boy, am I tempted. Nope. They've been going under. What
was yesterday? What Munt 1, Oliver none?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's 3 tight end catches in 2 weeks combined, I think, for the Vikings. Yeah, it's not great. I too am waiting for some more just schemed up tight end catches. Hasn't really been happening. But yesterday, I didn't feel like Darnold, and this is not me just going out of my way to rip Sam Darnold. I thought it was kind of an average Darnold game. I felt like he wasn't as decisive. I thought that his pressure to sack rate was pretty high. Did 2 really stupid things with like the flip to Jones, which fortunately incomplete. And then even on, I know his arm got hit, but the lateral fumble to Powell, even if he throws that normally, I thought it was a weird decision to throw. But
that to me, I'm not going to hold that against him because it felt like that was like a pre-delegated read and not necessarily his decision, and then of course it got altered. But no, I agree. I think that this was more a decent game than it was a good game. I thought that last week he had played better, but like, and
can I balance out my criticism first, just with the compliment I was going to punctuate it with? I just want to say that the 3 touchdown throws, Jefferson with the mobility and the off-platform throw, on target to Naylor back of the end zone, resetting his feet, and then Munt in an absolute crowd, like a grand jury of people surrounding Johnny Munt.
Just zipping it in. Yeah.
3 outstanding throws in the red zone. And I feel like the Vikings have struggled capitalizing. You have to look at the red zone touchdown rate the past couple of years, but that's refreshing. It's refreshing to finish off these drives. That was missing last year.
Not only the red zone rate though, too, but turning turnovers into points, right? Yeah. 14 points off turnovers as well. And you don't get that without efficient red zone play as well. But I'm with you, Sam. Sam Darnold seems to be, and it's only 3 weeks, small sample, but seems to be good for like 1 or 2 of those whoopsie plays a game. And when you don't win the turnover battle, you don't score 14 points off those turnovers like they did yesterday. Every negative play is just going to get magnified a little bit more. So I'm with you. It would be nice to clean up those 1, 2, 3 negative plays a game with him. But outside of that, there is a lot of things he's done well, and he's checked a lot of boxes that a lot of us all had a lot of major questions, at least at the beginning of the season. We just didn't know what it was all going to look like. So, all in all, I don't know if that's being nitpicky or not, but definitely – there might be a game or 2 this year where if he does have those 2 or 3 negative kind of just boneheaded, what were you doing plays, that might be the difference between a win and a loss.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a combination. The outcome, right, 34-7 is the combination of the Vikings both being good and being lucky. Like that's what happens. You get a several score win instead of like 2 score, 1.5 score, or however you want to call it, when it's like 9 points or whatever, right? Like the Vikings played better than the Texans, I would argue by about 9-10 points, whatever. And then luck pushed them into this like obscene territory where they're winning by like
penalties
20,
too, man. You don't beat a good team by that many points without them shooting themselves in the foot once in a while as well. I mean, Tunsil,
shout out to U.S. Bank, right?
U.S. Bank, baby, 122. Let's go.
Before that gets
11 penalties to 5. That's huge. Yeah.
Okay, before that gets away from us, I pulled some audio or video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. So Locked On Texans postcast. We've got a whole network of postcasts now. They've got former Texan offensive lineman Wade Smith as their analyst. I've got 39 seconds of Wade Smith explaining what he thinks happened with Tunsil and how it's not all on Tunsil, partly the center. This is Wade Smith on the postcast.
When you're going on a count, the timing is off because Tunsil is the type of guy that is absolutely on the time. He's absolutely on the count, or he's a tick early, consistently. And so it's one of those things as a center, you have to snap the ball early, even though you have to anticipate that your tackles are going to anticipate. Either that's got to happen or Tunsil has to slow down, one or the other. Because a lot of times I'll audibly hear hut, but the ball is not moving yet. And some guys have better reaction times than others. And
kind of interesting. Yeah. And the center looked totally discombobulated.
So they've had 2 centers play this year, right? Mostly Drew Scruggs, but they had to replace him last week because of some injuries. He came back, obviously. But new center, right? Rookie Drew Scruggs. So that would explain that. Tunsil is leading the league in penalties right now, non-Chris Boyd division. He has something like 9 or 10 through 3 weeks, and I think the leader last year among offensive linemen in penalties was Juwan Taylor with 20.
Wow!
And so if you've got 9 through 3 weeks, there's something seriously like systemic there, right? Because Tunsil doesn't have that history of penalties. He's also played with different centers than this one, so I do think that there's something with Tunsil, right? Like he could play in a way that minimizes that amount of penalties, but that intersection, like this is what a lot of people might mean by chemistry along the offensive line, that cooperation between him and the center, that relationship, obviously is impacting their level of play. It put them out of field goal range in that play, right? And so, that's pretty significant. That has nothing to do with the 2 illegal formation penalties that Tunsil had in this game. That's separate, but yeah, and he wasn't, like, the center had a false start penalty because of the way his head moved. It needs to be kind of a smoother. And I was watching a different former Texans offensive lineman break this down, and he's like, yeah, that's not on the refs. That's 100% on the center. You can't do it like that. Like, everybody does the head bob, and you do it in different ways, but you can't just jerk your head like that. And it turns out on the Tunsil false start, the final of those 3 false starts, the center could have been called for it again.
Yeah.
It just happened to be that.
Yeah, I saw that. He did it like
Yeah.
twice in a row. Like,
isn't that kind of a very like objective? Yeah, subjective. Like that's got to be tough, man. I mean, yeah, well, no, you're right, but especially that, like, okay, is there a rate of how rapid he whipped his head back
probably,
and forth that we got to go off?
It seems like whenever I see an offensive lineman talk about it, he's like, "You can't do that." So it seems like everybody's
no, you're absolutely right. That's why I'm kind of
like way too
entertained by this whole conversation, because I feel like I'm learning a little bit here, because it's something that I just didn't have a lot of information about, and then when it got called yesterday, and now a lot of conversations are happening this morning about it, I'm actually learning quite a bit about it, because it just seems like, and you're right, they're all subjective, but that specifically I just hadn't seen, I guess, play out that way many times. Yeah, like that. So,
and I loved the production too, to capture O'Connell on the sideline, pointing to the ref and going, moving
in slow motion too. They had to put it in slow motion too, which was great. I just think, man, that's got to be so tough though for a center. You got a 340-pound nose tackle, Dexter Lawrence, breathing over your neck. It's 3rd and 17. The place is loud. You're on the road, and like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I whip my head a little bit too fast? I'm sorry. You come in here and do it. You kidding me? Unreal.
Dude, that's the job.
That must have been.
Man. Go play guard then. Go play guard.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I assume that was the loudest the building got all day, was the final play of that sequence. I mean, that crowd just feeds off of
that, or when Will the Thrill kicked that 58. I had to assume
that was good too.
Yeah.
That thing hit like a good halfway up the goalpost too.
Dude, it looked like somebody had a side shot from 58, man. 68. I don't want to say easy, because that just doesn't seem realistic, but it had a lot of room.
We saw a 65er go through yesterday with a little room to spare too.
Yeah. Was there a kid in college?
To be clear, that ball wouldn't have made it from 68 because it would have been out, right? Like,
it would have been out, right?
It had the distance though. No, I do think it's funny, because it's like the Vikings were so far ahead that they were like, we should get some practice in. That was. That's crazy how much the Vikings were ahead, that they were like, all right, well, we got to practice these long kicks for when they matter, which, to be clear, is not right now. Nuts. That's like, it's been so long since the Vikings have been that far ahead that they could just relax a little, just unclench a little bit,
right,
and just be like, yeah, we got to get our kicker some kicks, man. This is crazy.
That was the first lengthy kick he's had to make. I don't know if he'd even had a 40-yarder to that point. It had all been extra points and short field goals. So I was actually loving the decision to go for that, and it paid off.
That's fine that he kicked it. Yeah. I do think that, like, I mean, hitting the upright is funny and stuff like that. That is a little bit of a concern. From 58, I'm not going to freak out or anything like that. Like, but I would argue that was a lucky kick and not a good kick, is how I'd get there. But
wow, that is a strict kicking grade you've got there, Mr. Hassan.
That's fine. I mean, I'm glad that it happened now and not in a time when it mattered, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
no, that's true.
Now you get to work on it a little bit.
Yeah, get those reps in.
The special teams coordinator, Matt Daniels, right? He's talked about this, about how when you don't nail a kick straight down the center, there's a question mark about how consistently you can do it going forward, and you grade kicks not by whether they go in or not, but whether or not they go through the center. That would be a poorly graded kick from Matt Daniels. I'm just taking his criteria.
No, that's fair. That's fair. We're going to talk weaknesses next. Do the Vikings have a weakness? If they do, maybe Will, or maybe Arif thinks it's Will Reichard. We'll talk about that next on the Minnesota Football Party. Today's episode brought to you by DoorDash. On game days, you want to have the ultimate football buffet, whether it's Saturday afternoons, Saturday primetime, Sunday afternoons. There's going to be some serious tailgating at home going on for this Sunday's game between the Vikings and the Packers. You want to have the best drinks, best snacks, the best food for your Sunday at-home buffet. Use DoorDash, please. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 plus on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promos not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash is your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. I love getting some chips, some dip, maybe some like delicious bars of some kind, some of those peanut butter bars. Got to be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Again, that's LOCKFALL24 at DoorDash. All right, Vikes are 3-0. They join the Steelers, who are all defense and very little, I would say, on the offensive side of the ball. They join the Seahawks, who've had a nice start to their season. Seahawks are good. Chiefs are also 3-0. They've snuck by 3 times. You could objectively argue the Vikings have the best 3-game resume based on who they've beaten in the NFL. And I don't know if there's that much of a debate. Do the Vikings have a weakness right now? And try to ignore priors. Try to ignore what we thought we knew, because I certainly am having to do that. I was skeptical about a ton of stuff, and none of it's come to fruition. So what is the weakness that we've seen on tape through 3 games? I would toss out interior line play. I don't think it's been awesome. I don't think Bradbury's been awesome. I don't think Ingram's been awesome. Randall's been very good.
Randall's been great.
That would be my one.
Yeah.
I'm still concerned about the interior holding up.
I'm seeing a lot more clean pockets in there. And granted, little chicken in the egg once in a while when you got a quarterback that isn't a statue back there like we watched for 6 years with Kirk Cousins back there, but that can just create a little bit more. But I'm seeing a lot more clean pockets back there for the, through these first 3 games, I guess, than we had in years past. So maybe it is just, the improvement of one left guard. Maybe that's all it takes. But I think I'll go back to like the Sam Darnold, like whoopsie plays, like, in a closer game, those are going to be so much more magnified. Again, they scored 14 points off turnovers yesterday. In a game or in a week that doesn't happen, you can't have 2 or 3 just kind of like boneheaded whoopsie plays. So you got to clean that up. I think I'm also a little scarred with just the way the defense played last year, kind of those big roller coasters, right? The ebbs and flows they went through last year. First, 5-6 weeks, super rough, super slow start. Then about week 6-ish, it started to click. Then they got decimated by those injuries those last 3, 4, 5 weeks, kind of dropped off a cliff again. So I know it's been amazing so far, these first 3 games. And even if they do get banged up, I mean, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate with myself. Even if they do get banged up again, we've actually seen a lot of good depth at a lot of key spots and positions. Pat Jones going off already. Haven't even gotten a taste of Dallas Turner yet. Ivan Pace out yesterday. Rouge Hill comes in, makes some plays. Flores can mask a starter going down probably better than, most defensive coordinators, but you still got to have the talent. And if they go through another injury massacre like last season, at a certain point, there's not really a lot a coach can do. You still need talent to go out there and produce. But yeah, as of now, I have been pretty impressed with the depth they've shown, really on both sides too, because I'm with the Reef, losing a guy like Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor coming in and just making the plays when those opportunities are presented. Both sides of the ball showing some good depth.
Yeah. I think the offensive side certainly has been tested, a little bit already with Addison, Hawkinson, and they've been good. I still want more. I still think they need more tight end production, but the solution's on the way. It's TJ Hawkinson. If they didn't have TJ Hawkinson coming back, I would say, the tight end thing's a problem. I still, and Arif disagrees with me, I still would like to have a better wide receiver 2 option. I'd like someone to take more attention away from Justin Jefferson. I think Addison solves that problem, and he could play on Sunday. So I think that the solutions to those problems are coming. They have them in-house. That's super valuable. We'll see what happens if the defensive depth gets tested a little bit more. Secondary's been healthy, knock on wood. Front line has generally been healthy except for Dallas Turner. Arif, what's a weakness?
So I agree that the interior offensive line is a weakness. I'll just echo that. I think that especially in pass blocking, obviously, I think his run blockers, they've been fine. The Vikings rank something like 21st or 25th in pass block win rate, so they're giving up pressure pretty quickly to the interior, and that's not because of Brandel, it's not because of Darisaw, it's not because of O'Neal, it's because of those two interior offensive linemen. Darnold does hold on to the ball a lot. He's either getting rid of the ball on time in rhythm, or he is just holding on to the ball. It's funny because he refuses to take a sack, but his sack rate's pretty high. Right? It's both of these things where he moves around a ton, he tries to get out of sacks, he tries to make as many plays as possible, refuses to take a sack, still takes sacks, still takes chances and stuff like that. So I think that combination of a guy that tries to keep a play alive as long as possible, along with an interior that gives up pressure pretty quickly, those are the biggest weaknesses. I think Darnold doing dumb stuff is on top of that an additional weakness. I think if I were to name a weakness that you two haven't talked about, it's that I don't think we've seen the secondary tested. You know, as soon as they play an experienced quarterback, which I don't regard Daniel Jones as one, an experienced quarterback that has the ability to kind of
I see where you're going here. I see where you're going.
That has the ability to navigate complex blitz looks, that can call protections, right? So not Daniel Jones, right?
Fair.
So Aaron Rodgers in London here coming up.
Right, exactly. That'll probably be the test because Brock Purdy is, I would argue, from the metric that I'm talking about, the ability to kind of navigate protection, stuff like that, better than Daniel Jones at, manipulating kind of what those protections are. He is still fairly green in that regard. His hot read concepts it's not as bad as Jalen Hurts, but his ability to get to hot reads is fairly simple. Right? There's not as many blitz answers with what Brock Purdy does than with what somebody like an Aaron Rodgers does. And as soon as you have that, as soon as you have a guy that does a better job with simulated pressures, with 5-6 man rushes and stuff like that, then we'll get a better answer for what that secondary can do, which hasn't been tested yet. That's not a weakness. I just don't know. And so I'm concerned because that lack of knowledge might mean we find out in the worst way at the worst time.
Arif, let me ask you this. So we're talking 2017 comps today. 2017, you were famously anti-Keenum, or not anti, but waiting for the other shoe to drop. You wrote about it a lot. You expected regression. You've been pro Darnold. What makes you feel better about Darnold than you did about Keenum in 2017?
I mean, some of it is just priors, right? There's a reason that Keenum went in the 6th round. And Darnold went 3rd overall. And, some of it's, we got to dispense of priors at some point, but I think that Darnold has more tools, has better tools. Keenum didn't have the strongest arm in the world, and he acted like he did, and that got him in trouble. Darnold does have a fairly strong arm and acts like he does, and that helps a little bit. Again, they'll both do kind of stupid stuff, but I think Darnold goes through the progressions in a much more natural way. That is what an offensive coordinator would want. You can design systems around Darnold. I don't think you can really design that much around Keenum. It was, receiver makes a hero play, receiver makes a hero play, receiver makes a hero play. Keenum was undrafted. Thanks, James. I think that Darnold's mental capacity to play quarterback at a really high level is, the ceiling is much higher. And while Darnold is making a bunch of these stupid plays every single game, and we're like, Jesus, I'm glad that didn't matter, I think he's making fewer of them than Keenum does. I remember we asked Keenum, he threw this pass on a crossing route to Adam Thielen. I don't know if I told the story here or if I mentioned it just on the Norse Code podcast, but a crossing route, 3rd down, Adam Thielen snags it. Incredible. We asked him after the game, how did you see Adam Thielen? You were moving around in the pocket so much. Seems like you just kind of flung it there. And he's like, oh, I didn't. I just kind of trusted he'd be there. And it's like, Jesus Christ, man.
I remember that play too.
Yeah.
He was facing intense pressure, right? Kind of a blind throw. Yeah, I remember that.
Just nuts, and which is awesome that he has the stones to do that. But Darnold generally knows where the guys are, is the difference. and so that's the kind of stuff that makes me a little bit more heartened. I do think that there are some concerns about the sustainability of his play. I mean, right now he's like a top 5 quarterback in efficiency. I don't think that's going to last. But the sustainability of his play, just because he's taking a lot of chances and the chances are going in his direction, that's not going to hold up. But I think that his baseline level of play is a little bit higher. He plays in rhythm a little bit better. He's got, the ability to kind of push down the field with a little bit more accuracy. So there's more there, I think, to kind of hold on to.
Yeah, and, to defend Case Keenum for a second, poor guy had Pat Shurmur calling his plays, chirping in his ear, too. So you go from Pat Shurmur to Kevin O'Connell. I mean, come on. Night and day difference.
Of course.
Night and day. Time for everybody's favorite part of the show, nerdy stats of the day.
Analytics fans rejoice. It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
Our nerdiest numbers and analytics on this Monday. Luke Inman, the Spinman, kick us off.
All right, I got two. The first one you've probably already heard, but I got to say it at least on record one time because it's so amazing. In 3 games, the Vikings have only trailed less than 4 minutes. So over 180 minutes, they've trailed for only 4 minutes, less than 40 minutes. The other one is the Vikings are now the only team over the last 20 years to have 5 or more sacks in the first 3 games of the season. So this defense, even with the Giants, I don't know if you guys watch Giants Cleveland, Giants sacked Deshaun Watson 8 times, I think it was. Even with that performance, Vikings still lead the league in sacks. So pretty impressive start, hot start for this pass rush and this defense so far.
Wow. Luke Braun submitted one to some form of communication to me. I don't see it on my email. I don't see it in my text messages, but I can't find it. I do remember looking at it though and digesting it. The summary is that the Vikings have had a win probability over 90% entering the fourth quarter in all 3 games so far.
That's crazy.
Pretty good.
That is just so. You talk about the differences between 2017 and what we're getting right now here, Sam. Like we are just not used to. We are so hardwired for every game to come down to the wire in that last drive, especially with Kirk Cousins. And then the Mike Zimmer, just old school philosophy of just, we're built to win close games. We don't know how to step on the throat, step on the gas. So yeah, that may be another good example of what feels a little different through 3 games than 2017 as well. That's a great step.
Mm-hmm. Arif, what do you got? I'm going to play anchor leg on this one.
Right now, Sam Darnold leads the league in yards per attempt in a clean pocket. It is, the top 5 are, Derek Carr, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Sam Darnold, 10.4 yards per attempt. Also the second best PFF grade in a clean pocket. That is the stuff that is a little bit more stable than performance under pressure. Now, he is one of the worst quarterbacks in yards per attempt under pressure. That is something that, you'll have to look at solving. Again, we've talked about how that can happen with the reintroduction of injured players. That'll help. But the clean pocket stuff is really heartening because that is the majority of your snaps. That is more stable from game to game. And that tells us a lot more about the state of the offense. It's really well designed. 10.4 yards per attempt when there's no pressure. Pretty incredible.
All right, here's what I got. I filtered out using StatHead every time in history that a team has begun 3-0 with a point differential of plus 50 or better. It has happened 110 times all time. That's going back to 1920, by the way, over a century ago.
Oh, peak football back then. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. Let's narrow it. Let's narrow it to just an arbitrary 25 years. Let's go back 25 years. So that actually excludes the 98 Vikings, who also fit that criteria. Last 25 years, 32 teams have done it, have had this kind of start. 25 have made the playoffs. So already better than 3 and 4 chance the Vikings make the playoffs based on that criteria. 8 of the 32 made the Super Bowl.
Okay, so 25%.
25%, you're in the Super Bowl.
Okay. Wow. So I'm trying to think the last time the Vikings started 3-0, 2016 they started 3-0, right? And they missed the playoffs. 09, I might be missing a year. I just know there was a bunch of garbage years after the Favre stuff. But 09 went to the NFC Championship game. 03, Culpepper thing.
03 they missed. That was the Nate Poole year.
Yeah, they missed. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vikings are not a good example. Not a good example.
Yeah,
to
maybe
use.
not.
But again, the point differential is key. Like because you look at the teams on this list, and you're like, okay, yeah, like these are some of the best, like generationally good teams. These teams were these are like Peyton Manning's Broncos and early Russell Wilson Seahawks. Tom Brady pops up here a ton. Ben Roethlisberger. These are elite teams in this company that we're talking about. And there's like 7 teams of those 32, again, didn't make the playoffs. Like the 21 Broncos, the 19 Cowboys, the 16 Eagles. I can't remember who their quarterback was.
Who was
that
the
guy?
16 Eagles? Yeah, can't
look it
Weird.
up. Can't find it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, but I mean, the path they're on is outstanding. It is great company to be in. Again, I'm just blown away. 8 reached the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that criteria. There's tons of
differential. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
differential quality of wins, and then also too, like we're beating quality opponents too. It's not like the Saints where, and who knows? I mean, Saints just went toe to toe. I know they lost to the Eagles, but they do look like they're a lot better than a lot of people thought. But like they had that huge, crazy 96 point differential through 2 weeks. Okay, that's great on paper, but Vikings just beat the Texans and the Niners. Like they're passing these litmus tests and getting the point differential along the way. So kind of a double dip there as well.
The point differential thing is critical because it demonstrates kind of the overall quality of play. I think that if we had the game script, which is point differential over time, that'd be even better because I think the San Francisco game acted more like a 2-score game for the course of the context, even though it's technically like a 1-score game at the end. But I will say, like, that is a great contrast to the 2022 Vikings, right? Where, they had a negative point differential at the end of the season and they made the playoffs, right? This is not that team, right? They're winning on offense, they're winning on defense, the special teams are managing. Like, it's incredible stuff. I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings didn't play as well throughout the balance of the season after this hot start. But, I think that our prior should be that this is a good team, right? They're playing like a good team. They beat good opponents. They beat good opponents by quite a bit. Even if they were bad, even if the Texans and the 49ers were actually secretly bad, right? Which, if you look at 49ers Twitter, that is what they think. The 49ers are secretly bad. But if we assume that both of those teams are actually bad, this is what good teams do to bad teams. This is actually, it's fine. If you win a game by 3 scores against a bad team, more often than not, you are a good team. Sometimes bad teams beat bad teams by 3 scores. That does happen. Sometimes average teams beat bad teams by 3 scores. That does happen. Most often, it's a good team. Yeah. And so, it wouldn't shock me if the Vikings kind of cool off a little bit, because there are like a lot of like question marks about the individual personnel and stuff like that. But for now, I think they're a good team.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some splits through 3 games this year, 2023. Remember, turnover margin last year through 3 games, -7 this year. It's already +2, so a 9 turnover swing. That's huge. Points per game. Offense really wasn't a huge, 23 points per game through 3 games last year offensively, 28 this year. Defense, though, defensive points per game, 27.
Well, the first 3 weeks last year were brutal.
Per game.
This show last year, we were talking about Keenan Allen with 28 catches and Justin Herbert with 800 yards. I think those were the official numbers.
Jalen Hurts going off the Eagles
game.
Look
it up. You're probably right, Sam.
Yeah, it was crazy. So,
And
27-10.
It's funny because last year I was like, no, this team is way better than 0-3 would suggest. I promise you. This is all fluky. It'll turn around. And luckily for my takes, I was kind of right about that.
It bore out, yeah,
until they got hurt, right? But it bore out, right? And now I'm here saying, hey, this team is maybe not exactly as good as literally the most efficient team in the league. Daniel says in chat, we might be the most balanced team in the league right now. I haven't looked it up, but they're top 3 in both offensive and defensive EPA per play when you take out a garbage time. So good chance that they are, right? And while I don't think they're necessarily the best team in the league, and I'd love to be proven wrong about that, I think they're a good team. I think that we can kind of trust what we're looking at and that the team will likely get better in some respects, even if the numbers fall off, than worse because of those returns from injury that we've been talking about.
Okay, one more from 2024 to 2023. The rushing, I think I already touched on this, 66 yards per game last year with Madison. Okay, Todd Chandler. This year, 125 yards per game. Such a 58-yard improvement per game. You would think, when's the last time the Vikings have even averaged over 100 yards on the ground consistently? 125. Jesus. You would think that would be like kind of high in the NFL. Guess where that ranks? 125 yards on the ground per game. Guess where that ranks in the NFL right now through 3 weeks?
Now with all these running quarterbacks, man, it's kind of tough. 10th?
14th in the middle of the, just average, middle of the pack. Green Bay and Baltimore averaging over 200 yards per game, just on another level.
Yeah, that's super unbalanced, though, because Baltimore ran it 45 out of 60 plays yesterday to beat Mike Zimmer's defense.
For sure.
And the Packers ran it how many times against the Colts?
Running it. Yeah.
Josh Jacobs. And then Malik Willis went off yesterday on the ground, too. So you're right. Running quarterback. Dangerous. Washington's number 3. Jaden Daniels, obviously. Philly's number 4. Barkley, Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the quarterbacks at the top here. Yeah.
Let's open the preview window to the Packers game after this, and we also want to update our Week 3 bets. That's next on the Minnesota Football Party. Brought to you today by FanDuel, and let me tell you, at FanDuel, if you didn't bet Sam Darnold MVP before the Texans game, you missed the boat. He was 23rd most likely quarterback in the league to win MVP before the game. You could have gotten, worse odds on Tua, on Anthony Richardson. They were all more likely than Darnold. Well, Darnold had that game. Now he's the 9th most likely QB. You can still get him at 25-1 at FanDuel, where you can bet the futures, you can bet the over-unders, the spreads on the NFL. You got every line, every league, and you've got this. New customers with their first $5 bet can secure $200 in bonus bets. So if you've got a hunch in the middle of the game, you can also do the live line, and you can cash on that. Again, that's your first $5 bet. Get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's with your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Check out the lines. Make every moment more. Have some fun. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, Vikings-Packers 6 days from now. Packers 2-1. They go 2-0 with Willis. So fortunate for them to have played Anthony Richardson and Will Levis in successive weeks. And also, I think the unpredictability of the Willis game plan for Green Bay probably helped them a bit. Just going in for Green Bay, knowing that they were going to sell out and try to run the ball. And then Willis being able to move with his legs, too, is a wild card. I think they caught a couple bad teams off guard, and they won convincingly on the road yesterday. And there were actually good throws made by Willis. I think they're back to Jordan Love on Sunday. That seems like that's the play. He was close last week. They're saving him for the big divisional game. I think Jordan Love is probably going to play. A potentially not 100% Jordan Love. Do you find that more formidable than the running of Malik Willis, who went 2-0? Is this still a tougher challenge for Minnesota to vie against?
I don't think so. So first, I do think that he will be 100% if he returns. The Packers injury staff is notorious for holding players out when they're 90% and stuff like that. So I do think that he'd be 100% by the time he returns, especially given the reports that he might have been available last week. So there's that. Second, I've been a Jordan Love skeptic for a little bit. I think that's pretty well known.
Hater.
I wrote hater, sure. Yeah, I just drink the Haterade. I love it. I refuse to pick up a cup of love. I will continue downing bottles of Haterade. The concerns I have about Jordan Love, I think, might materialize in a game like this, where you've got a defense that has the ability to kind of capitalize on mistakes and stuff like that. I do think he's better than Malik Willis. I think over the course of a season, these surprises, that Malik Willis was able to kind of spring on a bunch of other teams wouldn't continue to bear out. But really, this tells me that Matt LaFleur is an incredible coach, something we already kind of knew. Yes. But this helps confirm how fantastic of a coach he is. That's the concern. Whether or not it's Jordan Love or Malik Willis, back there, you're going up against Matt LaFleur. Now, Jordan Love is a bigger threat for sure. But, it's less that Jordan Love is a great quarterback, and more that Matt LaFleur knows how to use a pretty decent quarterback to a great extent. So that's the concern. And he's always going to be there, whether it's Malik Willis or not. So that is why, there should be some, I don't know about hesitancy about this game, but I wouldn't mark it as necessarily a win. I do think that you're right, though, that their impressive wins have come against less impressive teams than for the Vikings. Still, any given Sunday, right?
Yeah, I got to echo that about Matt LaFleur. I mean, he came out in that first game with Willis And he came up with some running concepts that I don't think the Colts were prepared for at all. Stuff that they had not done not only this year, but like hadn't done in the past at all. Coming up with some great running concepts that really, I think, caught the Colts on their heels, caught them off guard. Now you got a 2-game sample size, though. So now sometimes you get that 1 week flash in the pan. Okay, now we played another bad team, got a pick 6 from Jair Alexander. Otherwise, that's probably a 1-score game. I go back to the litmus test, kind of like what Arif said. Like, your real litmus test was week 1 versus the Eagles, and you lost. And you gave up, 34 points as well, too. So I don't know, too. I keep thinking about this defense, this Brian Flores defense, man. Boogeyman status, as some people are calling them. Do you want to throw out your guy, Jordan Love, first game back with a little bit of rust, perhaps? And I agree with you, Reef. If they're putting him out there, he's going to be 100%. But, man, it's going to be interesting. I think everybody assumes because he was limited in practice all week that he's for sure going to play now. I think it might be a little bit more 50-50 than people think getting up to game time. You know, that Thursday, Friday practice is going to be huge. But, yeah, their only litmus test, right, versus the Eagles, they lost, and they gave up 34 points, 34-29. So,
elephant in the room, speaking of injured quarterbacks, the Sam Darnold injury scare was, I mean, that was a moment, right? Like, because the guy goes down.
Again. Yeah.
He touches his knee. At that point, all bets are off. Like, it doesn't matter if he walks off in his own power. That's the biggest fallacy in injury logic, that, a guy walked off on his own power.
The J.J. McCarthy thing. They didn't even know he was hurt.
No.
Day,
and that actually came to my mind. So they cleared him of serious injury. They examined him and cleared him. So, if you trust the doctor's ability in that situation, probably going to be okay. But I also fear, in some sense, that the further examination, which they're doing today, could bear something else out, because O'Connell did not rule that out. Like, O'Connell said, well, we'll examine the knee. And then Darnold was asked about it multiple times. He was pressed on this after the game, and he was non-committal. He's like, yeah, I mean, we'll get it looked at tomorrow. We'll see. So I'm still holding my breath, to be honest with you. And there will probably be an update today from KOC. Don't know what time that's at. But I think part of me is worried about something small, something that could affect the knee of Darnold. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a meniscus, maybe it's an MCL sprain, something like that could throw everything for a loop. Is there any concern on your guys' end?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
MRIs today, they wouldn't do an MRI unless there was, some reason to think that there's some ambiguity about the results that they've received so far. Obviously, they want to be careful. That's the primary reason. But we'll see kind of what the MRI shows, that there's always the possibility that, he can feel good in the moment, but be exposed to a potentially high level of risk if he were to play, and an MRI would reveal that. I'm concerned. The odds probably, and again, none of us are doctors, the odds are probably that he's fine, or that he'll only miss like a week or two or something like that. But, I don't know. It just, the Vikings, right? Just
Pro
like
Football
Vikings,
Doc.
man, we're just hardwired. Yeah. And just real quick, too, sometimes you don't know how these injuries or kind of dings are going to swell up the next day, too. Like, the adrenaline's going that day during the game. You get home, start to calm down a little bit. Nerves, the adrenaline starts to calm down. You wake up the next day,
literally
things can
the
look a lot
of
different.
Adrenaline. Yeah, that's exactly what adrenaline is supposed to do. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes today. But certainly, I think a lot of people are holding their breath, especially after what happened with J.J. McCarthy. So fluky. Like, we didn't even know what play he got hurt on. He stayed in the game. So, worst case, something like that happens. I'm with Arif. Hopefully, it's just a week or two. You get the bye coming in after week 5, after that London game. So, hopefully, worst case, he would be back going into that Lion game coming out of the bye.
Pro Football Doc, for what it's worth, projected a mild MCL sprain based on the video. Take that for what it's worth. And he doesn't think he'd miss time with that. Okay. And again, Jordan Love had a pretty ugly looking MCL sprain, missed 2 games. So if that's it, if Pro Football Doc is on top of this, that'd be great. That would be great. Also, I think the mobility of Darnold, it's nice. It's not his everything. I think that if he's, limited by 10, 20% with that mobility, I think everything would be okay. Let's update our gambling picks. We collectively went 6-2 this past Sunday. Give ourselves a round of applause.
So we're like real football handicappers at this point. We're like professional handicappers, basically, right?
You guys want to put real money on this now?
That's what that means.
For sure.
3 of us are in profit through 3 weeks. That's pretty excellent. I have taken the lead I was 2-0 this week, 4-2 overall. I got Diggs 60+ yards at plus money, plus 146. That profited me 109.50. Nice. And then the Rams plus 7.
I love that bet, man. I know this is like fake fun money, but like, dude, those kind of games and spreads scare me too much. I'm like, I'm not going to put my real money on this. Rams plus 7. Did you guys watch that game, by the way? Unbelievable game.
Great.
How the Rams win that game. Yeah. And I know the Niners are down, Kittle and Debo, Trent Williams went down for a drive or two, but still, man, like how they win that game. Props to Sean McVay and Stafford and company.
A little upset because I had Brandon Ayuk receptions over. In a non this chat. 5.5 was his over, and I was like, easy money. Oh my God, Debo's not playing, Christian McCaffrey's not playing. It's
Target hog. Here we go.
Ends up with 5 targets in the first quarter. Right, I'm like, oh, it's great. I'm money. 2 receptions
on pace for 20 targets.
Finishes with 5 receptions on 12 targets or something like that.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Vegas is just like freaky good. Like, how did they do that, dude? Like Johnny Munn over under 2.5, no problem, easy money. They're giving money away. 2 catches, what?
Inman, you did the Munt anytime TD 1 week too early, but. Yep. You did get Tank Dell yards with his final garbage time catch. And you also got Ravens. Good bet on the Ravens, minus 1.5. So Luke goes 2-0. He is $12 behind in second place. I'm at 11.67. He's at 11.55. And then Arif did lose 391 this week. You got the Seahawks spread, but you lost on Nico Collins. Again, over 5.5 receptions did not come to fruition.
Yeah,
talk about it.
The Vikings were too good at stopping Nico Collins. Diggs got all the targets. That's on me. The Seahawks one though, that was easy. Good.
That was easy money.
I did not expect Skylar Thompson to go out. Obviously, that was a pretty big element of the Seahawks crushing their 4.5-point spread. But Skylar Thompson played like garbage, so it kind of didn't matter.
Let me see if I'm right on this. The Seahawks were 2-0. They were in Seattle, right? This was in Seattle. The Dolphins flew. The Dolphins made the longest road trip in the NFL with a backup quarterback, and it was 4.5.
Yeah.
That line makes no sense to me. That should have been 7.5 easy.
I would have figured that they were touchdown favorites. Yeah, just crazy.
I would have believed 9.5, to be honest, with Skylar Thompson. Interesting.
Yeah, and then Tim Boyle comes in.
and then it got great after that.
You look at those lines. Sometimes you look at those lines and you go, wait a minute. This seems no way. This can't be right. And then for some reason, it's like you start to second guess yourself. You're like, what do I not know? What does Vegas know that I don't know?
They clearly have some knowledge.
What's going on? Yeah. You start to get to your head a little bit. But sometimes it is just as simple as like, wait a minute. You look at a line and go, okay, this is at least 2, 3, 4 points.
They're traveling 3,000 miles with a backup quarterback. But the last time we saw him, he sucked. Yeah.
He's not good. Right.
This is worthy of the buzzer. Luke Braun got a game right. Luke Braun went 1.
Oh.
He got the spread and lost on Diggs anytime touchdown. So he, like Arif, he lost money for the week, lost 391, same odds and everything. But he did get a win under his belt. That is the first win of the season for Luke Braun. He's 1-5.
And he did it with betting on the Packers.
Well, he was losing, so he wanted to curse everybody.
It was the reverse jinx. No, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's not how it played out.
It's not how we wanted that to work out. No, not at all. Can I just say too, Arif, you took Collins over 5.5. I know he didn't hit that, but that's my first time really sitting down and watching that dude. That dude, when the ball's in, he is good, man. He is legit. He's not a flash in the pan. Just, I got a good quarterback to finally throw me the ball. That dude is talented. He's big. He's fast. He's strong, and he's fun to watch when he gets that ball in his hands, man. He's solid. He impressed me a lot.
The sideline catch he made on the 3rd and 11. Somehow he caught it was like the ball was arcing downward, and he put his hands on top of it and just snatched it from the top. It was impressive. That was a great play. Led to their 1 touchdown. But Luke Braun is behind by about $150 out of third place. So this is a big early deficit for him with Arif, Luke, and I. We're all 4-2. through the first 3 weeks. That's pretty good wagering. We'll make our week 4 bets on Thursday as we do another live Minnesota football party, and Arif will be overseas. Is this you'll be in Ireland, correct?
Yes, in the north of Ireland. Just chilling in Ireland for a little bit. And then obviously the week after that, I'll be in London for the London game.
That's awesome. We'll
awesome.
have boots on the ground, Arif reporting live from London and the New York Jets in week 5.
What time does that game kick off in real time, in London time? Is that like a 3:30 kind of game? 8:30 here.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there.
Yeah, figure it out.
Minnesota football party. Hey, subscribe, Locked On Sports Minnesota, to the Everydayers. We have a great lineup. Shows all week. Ron Johnson on Tuesdays. Football special right now on Wednesdays, and our roundtable on Fridays with KARE 11 sports reporters. Arif Hassan, check out his Wide Left Substack. Watch Luke Inman on the postcasts. And again, Locked On Sports Minnesota, your ticket to Minnesota sports. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and chatting with us. We'll talk to you next time.